What's going on, people? So here you go, picture the side of the box and all that good stuff, so we can give you some sort of idea of what you're getting into here, right? And now, if you weren't sure and you didn't read the side or whatever, it's fine because I'm going to tell you what this is. This right here is the Adidas Supernova Rise in a black and green colorway. But you may have already known that because, again, titles, thumbnails, the whole thing. It's a whole giveaway here. What I don't care for is people put up like a thumbnail, it's like a box, and like, oh my god, what is this? Is this the best thing ever? It's like, just tell me what it is. Anyway, so moving along, let's go ahead and jump on into some things here. We're going to start this with the bottom. Down there, across that bottom, what are you looking at? Well, not a whole lot, right? It doesn't look like a whole lot at first anyways, but it's actually like kind of cool, like as far as technology things go. So let's break that down just a little bit for you. So you're looking in here, right? You see all these little things going on, but the biggest thing being like these gray pieces here. So that's going to be their stability rods, I think they call it, or energy rods, whatever they call it. It's kind of like having a plated shoe, but instead of a plate, it's kind of just like this pronged approach, right? So it kind of gives you the same sort of propulsion through like your steps, just in a different sort of approach. So I think it's pretty cool. Otherwise, the outsole is going to be Adiwear, which isn't the same as like, the light traction or anything like that, but should still be pretty good, right? We'll see. I mean, from these to those, it's like a $110 price difference, right? So those definitely have more stuff going on, but still, for $140, you actually get a good amount with these. Moving on up here to the midsole though. So what that says in there, Dreamstrike Plus, right? So you got that going on. Similar to Light Strike, but yeah, it's a different sort of approach to it, right? But again, just something that's not boost, but still performs as well, but can be lighter. That's the short version of what's going on there, right? Now, a couple, they're not interesting, but a couple little bits of information about the midsole here. So as far as like height-wise goes, I forget what the height is in the back. It's a little less than 39 though. I can know that. It might be like 36 or something like that. 36, maybe 37. But either way, the height in the back, the height in the front, it's rarely the same, right? That's why they have like the heel drop that they talk about. The heel drop on here is going to be 10, right? So if this is say 30, let's just say it's like 37 in the back, that means it's going to be like 27 in the front, right? As far as like the slope down. So it's kind of a lot, right? It's the highest one out of these. So this one is 10. The Adioses are 6 and the Primas are 8, right? Is that a thing that you will notice? I can't say because I don't know you. But if you go to a running shoe store like Dick's or like any others, or especially if you have a running shoe centric store in your area, try something out. Try the different heights out, and then you'll get an idea for how you feel about it. Anyways, that's what's going on there. When we're talking about midsole things and whatnot, overall, inside, it's looking the same as it did on the outside. Just in case you were curious, now you don't have to be. So, overall, the shoe, what's it looking like? Well, here's a shot or two so you can kind of see what's going on there. Nothing too crazy, honestly. It looks fine, right? It's black, it's green. It's a color combination that just kind of works, right? Not too crazy with like the volts, because some people aren't into that, but I think this is a solid look, right? And then a whole lot of mesh past that. So that means like we're not going to spend too much time on this. For one, because this is the Rise 1, which came out this would have been late 2023, right? Yeah, I want to say these came out late 2023. These, which is like a souped up version, if you will, came out at some point in 2024. I want to say mid 24. And the Rise 2 just came out in December of last year, so like last month. So these right here, I'll tell you this, I'm not going to get too deep into them because there's no real reason to, but if you like what you're seeing here, keep your eye on them because the price drops should be hitting pretty hard, hopefully soon, and you should be able to get these for a pretty good discount now that the 2 is out and they're going to have to get the 1 out of the way, right? So just something to think about. Anyways, personally, going over these, I'll give you what I think is worthwhile to talk about, and then we'll just kind of move away. So the upper, like I said, it's going to be mesh, right? It's not as nice of a mesh as you find on the Prima, but the Prima is newer and a little bit more expensive, so that's just going to be one of those things. It's not a deal breaker in my opinion. Sometimes you just have one thing that is better than another thing. It's just not better enough to the point where you need to completely write off the older one, and that's how I feel about these. So that's what's going on. As far as the stripes go, you do have a little bit of 3M happening on there on the side, and I do like that. It gives you some extra visibility that you're going to need if you're outside and whatnot at night. Very cool. Past that, past those stripes, you know, you like, again, you're going to see a lot of this this weird dotted stuff on the bottom, these green things. It's kind of plasticky feeling, almost feels like grabbing like a basketball in a way, like, because, you know, it has got like ridges on there. Yeah, it kind of has that sort of thing going on to me, but whatever, it's just a thing. So otherwise, the tongue, that's what we're talking about for sure. So it's super plush, right? Very cushiony on the tongue, a lot more than one would expect, at least a lot more than I expected based off of like other running shoes I have. But again, these are at this point almost 2 years old, so you got that. But otherwise, that's pretty much what's going on there. Just a very plush tongue, but you've seen it, you can kind of get those details for yourself. Moving on to the inside. The inside feels really nice. You know, it's nice and plush in the back, so it's going to hug your feet in a really good way. And that's actually one of the selling points that Adidas put into these. I forget what they call it, but like some comfort heel technology or something, just to give you like a good heel feel. But otherwise, it feels really nice all in all across the inside, so I can't complain about it, not one bit. So there you go. There's all going to be all that for the inside, and then blacked out on the Supernova for the bottom for the insole. So there we go. I think that covers everything, right? So I'm going to hit you with some... We'll do the personal thoughts and the sizing, then I'll do the comparison at the end against these guys over here. Personally, right? These right here are working out very well as far as I am concerned, like from a visual standpoint. Because sometimes you buy things online and like the look, you're not quite sure what you're going to get or if you're even going to like them. But the look, color-wise, came out exactly as it did online, so that is very cool. Which I wish that happened more often than it did, but sometimes it just doesn't work that way. And then as far as coming out of the box and everything, I will say initially, and I picked them up, I was like, these feel light and cheap and just like, I'm not going to be into this. But then once I started like getting a good feel for them, like, actually, you know what? This does, I get the whole extra light thing, right? But this does actually feel right, honestly. So I think that I am actually going to be into these. And at the price point of $140, it is kind of giving you the Nova Blast 5 kind of vibe in a sense, because, you know, a lightweight, low, not a whole lot going on in there, right? Slim down sort of build. Yeah, I think this is going to be a good thing all in all. So I'm pretty interested in seeing how this whole thing plays out, right? But just for right now, just like my initial impressions of, is this worth my money off the top or not? I'm leaning towards yes, because it just, so far it's working out pretty well, so things are going good. But let's talk about the sizing and whatnot, because that's the thing that matters. So we'll do that, then like I said, I'll do a little comparison. I bought these in a 9.5, right? I have a size 9.5 foot. It's a thing that tends to work out. It's working out fine on these. I will say, they do feel, they don't feel bad in any ways. It's just like, they don't feel like as roomy, and well, they don't feel like you have as much mobility, but that's largely just because the mesh is slightly different than the mesh on the Primas, right? And it's not bad. Like, in and of itself, it is absolutely fine. I have no complaints. It's just something that I noticed from one to the next, right? But I don't think that this is a reason at all to like not buy these. I think a lot of people still be super into them. So, and past that, just walking around in them, the first thing I noticed was that these are super comfortable, right? I like these a lot. They almost remind me in some ways of like the Kayano 31s, in that it's not like the most cushiony thing, but it has like the right amount in there to just like feel really good, at least in my opinion, right? So I'm looking forward to getting these out on the trails, tracks, roads, wherever it makes sense, and doing that whole thing, because this Dreamstrike stuff seems like it's really solid, as in good. And you don't have a whole lot of it compared to like what you have in like the Primas, which means that they're overall lighter. but it still feels to me like it's the right amount, right? So I feel like if you're gonna if you're getting into running and you need something that's gonna get you there and just give you some nice comfort, I feel like this is definitely something to consider, right? I mean, again, putting them up against the Nova Blast 5, they have similar price points, so I would say maybe that's something else to look into as well. But right now, just off the top, these are seeming like they're gonna be pretty solid. So go with that. And again, the one thing that I will say, the heel drop thing, that you can kind of notice that, at least I noticed that. So if you're standing around, it's not going to feel great, but if you start moving around, it should feel fine. So just kind of know that going into it. But all in all, I'm going to do a follow-up at some point, but I'm on board with how these are going so far. And even still, just as like just shoes to like walk around in, I'm not a big fan of like buying running shoes to walk around in, but I get that people do that. But this one right here would probably be like the one, because it's cheaper, has more colorways, it's super comfortable, right? Still very light, and a lot of the extra tech that you're going to get out of these, you're not really going to notice it because you're not running in them. But anyway, so as far as the comparison goes though, real quick, again, this is the Prima, this is the Rise. The Rise is 140, Prima is 160, okay? The biggest differences here, like the bottoms are going to be very much the same, right? So quick shot of that. The bottoms are very much the same. You can tell that they have the same idea going around, even though that one is a little bit newer. The Primas came out again like roughly 6 months later. But anyways, moving on past that, the midsole is going to be a difference for sure. The Prima at the time of release had the most Dreamstrike they'd put into something, which does make them a little bit heavier. They're both in the 9-ounce range, I believe it was. It's just this one is heavier. So that's what's going on there. Also on this one, you'll have like a lower heel drop, so it's a little bit more straight across from front to back. This one, 10 millimeters versus the 8 on these, right? So it's a thing that you kind of notice, but you know, whatever. Otherwise, the uppers, very much the same, visually speaking, right? They are going to be different approaches because again, this one was re-engineered, the Primas were re-engineered, so they do feel better. Yes. Overall, is this worth the $20 price jump to the 160 for what you get for it? Yes, your $20 is not wasted. But given that they have fewer color options, and to me, like, it's not a night and day difference. It's like, oh wow, I really need to wear these. I would buy the Rise and just be good with that, especially since the Rise 2 is coming out, right? But that's just for me right now. I haven't worn either of these outside yet to get any actual real thoughts on them. But right now, that's where I'm coming from. So we'll see what happens later. From me to you, have a nice rest of your day or rest of your night, wherever you are. Moving on to these Primas, and then I'll be done, right? Yeah, cool. Later, people.